Good morning, everyone. I hope it's been a productive day for you. We got Hawkeye, Eric Beyer, Joe McBride, Robert Hayden. Good morning, everyone. And here we are, ready to go. We've got a 1972 D-roll, and this 1972 D-roll is in the old 50 pennies, kind of a pinkish wrapper. So I don't think I've opened one of these recently at all. Be excited to see what comes out of this guy. And go ahead and start prying it open. I gotta go over and grab my names real quick, actually. I don't have those ready. There we go, 50 names for 50 coins going into one bag. Good morning, Mr. Crescent, Adam Conner, Dennis Paulson. Alright, I'll go ahead and finish prying this roll open here. There's that end done. This end's got the cardboard end. Little cardboard insert. Alright, here we go. Unwrap the roll. Looks like we got a number of shiny pennies inside. Yeah, these things aren't in bad shape at all. Alright, let's start fingering through it and figure out what we got. I'll pull coin number 1. Gonna be for Paul Hampton. Set my chair and get myself built it into place. Here we go. And here's Paul Hampton's coin right off the end of the roll. It's going to be a little difficult on us. Not seeing anything on this one right now, but this is probably because of the stuff on the coin. It's really hard to tell. Good morning, Andy. And Jessica, good morning. Go ahead and flip it over and take a look at the reverse, and then I'll go back through and I'll take a look at this coin again and see if it matches up to anything that we find in the roll, if we find anything. And go ahead and put this one in the holder. Move on to coin number 2. Coin number 2 will go to John Brandon Bowe. Much easier viewing on this one. Got nothing on the mint mark. Always look for double die obverses, especially in the In God We Trust area. Plenty of RPMs to look for as well. This design hides minor double die reverses, which is why it's really hard to find a double die reverse in 1972. Try 1970, 1971, 72, even 69. 73, they changed the reverse design, and even then, there's no double die reverses known. They changed again in 1974, go up through about 1979, and with those, there are not really any double die reverses. Maybe 1, maybe 2, I don't know. So, Eric Beyer. All we're looking for is a lucky recipient of a double die obverse or RPM. And we check the reverses, mainly looking for error things that are coin-to-coin errors. That's right, pennies for breakfast. Especially if you're in the Mountain or Pacific time zone, it's kind of early. But Here on the Atlantic coast, it's almost lunchtime. Let's move on to coin number 4. Coin number 4 will go to Mr. Pruitt. Brian Pruitt gets this one. Pretty nice shiny looking coin. But I'm not seeing any hub doubling on this one. No hub doubling on the obverse here. No mint mark doubling either. Look on the reverse, and I'm not seeing anything. So I'm going to end up with another normal coin here. Well, Jessica, you have a great day fishing. Well, Brian, your first coin here is normal. But we do keep digging, and we keep looking. Next coin, Eric Beyer, coin number 5. Take a look at it here real quick. That light is kind of adjusted weird. Turn it down just a little bit, make it a little easier to see stuff. And this one turns out to be normal on the obverse as well. Check out the reverse and see what we come up with. These rolls are generally one of those 75% miss, 25% hit, but when you do hit, you hit nicely. It's kind of like, you know, 3 out of 4 rolls is going to be a miss. But man, that 4th roll, it could be nice. These are mid-die state on the obverse. You can see that by the fact that there's flow lines coming out of the tops of the devices, but they're not very big. Oh, Mr. Dunn. The reverse is the same way, roughly mid-die state reverse. We've got some flow lines here and there and around. That's a hair. And they do make a little bit of a dig into the outer edges of the lettering, but those outer edges are still relatively sharp compared to what we could be getting. So that one for Mr. Fletcher. That was coin number 6 in the roll. Now for coin number 7. Bulldog came up this time. Let's see what we have for Bulldog. Nothing on the mint mark or on the date. No doubling on the obverse. Let's take a look at the reverse. Got nothing going on there. Well, it looks like we're 7 coins in and we're normal so far. But you never know when you're going to run into something. Here's Farm Dog. Farm Dog comes up next. And let's see. Oh. And nothing on the obverse there. I flip it over and take a look at the reverse. Got nothing there. That's coin number 8 now. Going to Farm Dog. And coin number 9. Mr. Speaks. nothing there. Flip it over and take a look. This one's a little later dice date. You can see how the flow lines run longer out of the tops of the letters. See how they're more than the thickness of the letter itself? That's a mid to late dice date coin. Some would just call that late dice date, but I tend to extend the dice dates just a little bit, because what's the point in having dice dates when your earliest dice date defines only 0.2% of the coins made, and then your latest dice date represents about 70%. It's a little skewed. I'd prefer to have my dice dates represent a little bit larger crowd of the coins. It's not that I disagree with Mr. Romines at all, but I think his definitions were a little tight for the earlier dice dates. It's like, for instance, a very early dice date coin is not allowed to have any flow at all. It has to be extremely needle sharp with no flow at all. Basically, we're talking about a business strike coin that essentially looks like a proof with luster, and not really any luster, because, well, luster is created by flow lines, and if you don't have any flow lines, then you don't really have any luster, now do you? You can have a very shiny coin, but it won't have any cartwheel on it. There won't be any what we call luster. Now here's a later dice date coin. This one's pretty late. This is also very weakly hubbed. As you can see, it has almost no tops to the letters. And it's weakly hubbed, not weakly struck. There's a difference there. The difference is that the die itself was not very well impacted with the design. So that's a very late dice date right there. The die itself was not very well impacted with the design from the hub, meaning that there wasn't really enough pressure to completely lay the design into the die. That transfers over to the coins. Even the harder strikes are going to have weaker designs. So when you have a weak design on a coin, it is not always caused by a weak strike. And that's one of those things that is a very common misconception among collectors. They talk about how, well, the reverse didn't get a really hard strike, so it's not going to get a high grade. Well, that just doesn't sound right, because if the reverse didn't get a strong strike, then that means the obverse didn't get a strong strike either, because, well, they're both struck at the same time. Obverse and reverse are both impacted at the same time by the die. So then if you get a strong obverse and a weak reverse on a coin, and, well, knowing that both sides are struck at the exact same time kind of tells you that you have an issue with a die, not a coin. Big variety for 1972D is going to be double die obverse number 2 or RPM number 1. That's actually double die obverses 1 through 4 are pretty nice. They're all class 1 doubling. They all show mostly right up here in the motto. You're going to see nice doubling up there. In fact, there are a couple of the double dies on the 1972D that actually look like a couple of the 1972 plain double dies. They're that strong. They're pretty nice. They look kind of like die number 7, die number 6, die number 3, die number 8 for the 72 plain. Very nice. But yeah, that thing about strike, though, you turn out with a weak one side and a strong other side, you know, pretty well. Your coin was struck just fine, but it was struck by a die that was not very well put together. That does happen. That does happen rather frequently on the early 70s. Well, this is your coin, son of a silver stacker. Turns out that all these are coming up normal. We haven't run into a die variety yet, but this one is yours. Very slightly weak on the strike. So you have a number of different things that can cause weak designs. You've got where you could actually be struck through something like grease or some other viscous material. You could have struck through a very late stage die cap, which would just weaken the design and model things up a little bit. You have a weakly hubbed die. You have a very late die state die that can cause weakness in the design. Or you could have a weak strike. So to automatically say any coin with a, like calling this right here, automatically calling this a weak strike, it's a little presumptuous. Although this time it happens to be true. This is from a weaker strike. And if we go back over to the obverse, we're going to find some place where that shows here on the obverse too. It's like in the hair detail. Down here in the shoulder, you're going to have a whole bunch of modeling marks. Those are from when the planchet was tossed around a whole bunch before it was actually struck, and there wasn't enough pressure to completely strike out all the hits that were in the planchet. Oops, I forgot to put Thomas's name in with his coin here. Drawing for coin number 16 now. I'm on very dangerous ground, folks. I've gotten up this morning and I spent my entire time after I got up getting ready for this video. Believe it or not, I've not had a sip of coffee yet. I've not had any breakfast, and I could go weak at the knees and pass out before I finish the video. But I'm doing great, folks. I'm great, Arizona Coins. How about you, brother? That's Thomas. Was that his second coin in a row? Yep, it was. Didn't notice that the first time around. Orig. Orig gets coin number 17. Let's take a look at coin number 17. I say this one's a much later die state. You can see the weakness. You can see the weakness in the design. And that's what caused the weakness that you do see is die wear. Where we go? Good morning, Mr. Ludes. Yeah, so you can see the die state issue here, that everything's kind of soft. Initials are basically run over by a truck. You know, that's late die state for you there. That's not a weak strike. What was my first Lincoln cent that I ever collected? You know, I don't even know, because I've been collecting Lincoln cents since I was 5 years old. That was in 1973. I can tell you the first die variety I ever found was a 1939 nickel double die reverse. The big doubled Monticello double die. I was looking through an old red book one time, and I saw double Monticello, and then the values were like skyrocketed. I mean, it was like normal nickel was worth 8, 10, 15 cents. And this one with a doubled Monticello was like $7, $10, $15. I was like, wow, that's nice. So I got my little blue folder out, popped my 1939 nickel out, and looked at it with a little magnifying glass, and sure enough, it had a double Monticello on the back. Knew exactly what that meant. So I took the coin out and I marked it special and put it in a special place in my collection because I had found a double die. That was in 1982. 2 years later, I picked up John Wexler's book on the Lincoln cent double die and started hunting. So that's when I actually started coin roll hunting for die varieties, was 1984. I was 16 years old. 15 or 16, depending on what time of the year I started. That's what experience does for you, William. You've got experience at something that goes way back that I have no experience at. Things that you know how to do that I'm certain I don't know how to do without really good instruction. And probably someone to hold my hand through the process. You know, like doing, hardwood flooring. I get the concept. I know how it works. But I've never done it. Looks like I'm going to need to do it because the house I just bought has carpet in my office. Now, if it's my house, I don't want carpet in my office. I want flooring in that office. I want parquet flooring. Really nice looking basketball floor. Now, the first Lincoln cent die variety I ever found was probably, I'm going to say 1996, 1995, 1996. I'd been looking around for the 1995 double die, and I was into the habit of checking everything that I come across. And I had an old book that I'd collected when I was a kid. I was looking through those with a magnifying glass, and the 1958 was a RPM number 1. So a 1958D RPM number 1 was the first RPM I ever remember running across. Sort of like a Celtics floor, yeah. You were going to the bank in 1955? Yeah, my parents were in grade school then. A little younger than that. I wish I'd been able to go to the bank in 1955. Folks, we're not coming up with anything in this roll. Just happens to be this one's probably going to turn out to be a dry roll. Yeah, my old coin albums were pretty good to me when I actually learned what I had and went back and started looking through them. One of them contained a 1942 S double die obverse number 2. And that shows mostly around the In God We up at the top. Nice little doubling on those things. Oh, what is this thing? That mint mark doesn't look like quite the right shape. I don't see anything though. As with every other roll that I do in these reveals, I am going to be going through this roll again just to make sure. I don't like the lighting on this scope. Makes it a little more difficult to see what I'm doing, so I put them back through the mill on my regular trinocular microscope with good halogen lighting so that I can tell whether or not I missed anything. And sometimes I do. I can remember finding an RPM in one of the rolls from last week or 2 weeks ago. I found an RPM. I think I found like 3 or 4 of them during the hunt. Went back through the roll and I found another 4 or 5 of them. So I do miss them sometimes. I am not infallible. So that makes me human. Yay. Look, Papa, I'm a real boy. So I always go through these rolls a second time, because this time only counts for broadcast purposes. And for us to find the good obvious stuff. Now the little stuff I have to wait for my microscope, because it's going to show me a lot better what we've got. Hey, looky, there is a rim cud. So a little piece of the rim on the die broke away, chipped away, and metal seeped in to the crevasse left behind. There's actually a little tiny bit of rim cud going part way around the coin. I'd be jumping up and down with excitement if that were a 72 plane, because that could indicate double die obverse number 4, which is a very valuable double die obverse. Few of them known, few of them found. You have challenged internet today. Boy, I hope I haven't made a mistake with internet with regard to where I'm moving to, because it's out in the country. But Spectrum tells me they can give me 400 megabit per second up and down, which that's as good as the old T1 lines. So don't think I have a whole lot of problem if they can actually give me that speed. I'll be doing really well. Right now I get 140, 150 up and down. Good morning, Mr. Chambers. Nice to see you report in halfway through the roll. Now you don't have to listen to the boring first half. You just get the skinny with the second half. I see how you are. Yeah, I'm just playing around. We didn't get anything in the first half. So here we're looking in the second half to see what we come up with. We've got some pretty nice coins, though. I mean, a lot of these coins are in gem condition. But they just don't seem to have any double dies in them. No repunchment marks. Likely excuse. You had to get ready for work. Work, smirk. I guess I better quit making fun of the workforce. In part, they allow me to stay home. So that's what I do. Mr. Morrell. Mr. Morrell gets his one coin out of this roll. And it looks as though we have another nothing, unfortunately. Another nothing is going to add up to making this roll a dud. So sometimes you get really good rolls and sometimes you just get duds. I just figured the wrapper was a little bit different on this roll and I wanted to try it out and see. Because it was the only roll like it that I got, so I didn't have anything else to judge it by. Yeah, actual speeds vary according to area. I want a guarantee. If I pay you for the 400 rate, can you guarantee that I will always have at least 300? No? Okay, I'll talk to the next guy. See that little mark right there? The whole thing looks like a light-colored 7. That's actually the top of the memorial building in a clash. I'll let you stare at it for just a second, then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to show you exactly where that came from. If you take that and you flip it over, and you make it backwards in relief and such, you get this spot right here. It's the top of the memorial building, top of the roof of the memorial building. Now I'll flip it back over and let you see the other side again. Right there in that spot. Right there. You can even see there's one of the little marks for the top of the cornice. So this is where that thing right below the T, that's where the roof meets the cornice. Get just a little tiny bit of it on this side over here, but it's mostly been scratched away by die polishing. There's another little bit of a memorial bay right there above the Y. Well, sometimes you just don't get what you're looking for. You don't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, you get what you need. There's the back of Lincoln's head. See if we have a... Sometimes when you have a clash, you'll end up with a Y. Yeah, there's a little bit of it right there. Top of the second bay. You see just a little bit of a Y upside down. That's the Y of Liberty. Sweet land of liberty. And sometimes you'll get a beard over here, but I don't see it this time around. That's a little bit of a clash. Let's teach you a little bit about how to find clash marks, especially the minor ones. Major ones I think are pretty easy to find. You end up with a prisoner scent, which is Lincoln with a bunch of bars behind him. And the reason those bars are behind him is because those are the columns of the memorial building poking through where the two dies slammed together with nothing between them. You slam two dies together with nothing between them, they tend to transfer the designs to one another. Having done that, well, you see bars behind Lincoln. Those bars look a lot like a jail cell. Well, at least we're doing okay in the fact that we don't have a whole bunch of red, brown, spotted, and striped up coins that are just basically pocket change. We do actually have collectible 1972D Lincoln cents here. Here's Yeoman Gold. And Yeoman Gold gets, well, just another one of the normal ones. We found no double dies, no repunchment marks yet in this roll. We're 31 coins in. Looks like that's probably how the rest of the roll is going to go, so we can just chit-chat through the roll. Because, well, without chit-chat, we wouldn't have anything, because I got nothing to say about these coins, unfortunately. Mr. Pritt. Mr. Pritt gets coin number 32 now. And coin number 32. I always check every coin, though. The reason is, if you don't check every coin, you could come up with something that was just a one-off in your roll. Because it could be one of the more scarce dies, or it could have been from an earlier hopper pull, and it might be the only one that comes in your 50. You end up with something really good. So if you're one of those people that will get into a roll and check through the first 10 or 15 coins and say, I'm bored, there's nothing here, you're probably missing stuff. I have seen rolls that had only one example of a die variety. I've seen rolls that had 3 or 4 different dies in them, but of those 3 or 4 different dies, each one only had 2 or 3 examples at best, sometimes only one example of each. There's no real rhyme or reason to it because, well, that's the nature of the randomness of pouring 7 or 8 different die pairs into a huge hopper that spits them out into a bag. They get transported in a bag all messed up, mixed up, and then they go into a rolling machine at a bank, and you get the first 50 coins that come out. That's pretty much exactly what a bank wrapped roll is. Mr. Crescent, I do not know right now what you're talking about. I came straight into getting ready for this as soon as I got up this morning. So I did not check email today. So I'm not sure what you're asking about. And Hector is here. One of our conversationalists. It should be a profession. I guess it is called journalism. I would love for every one of my reveals to be an interesting reveal. I want you guys to get good stuff out of these rolls. So when I come up with a dud roll like this, it's just as much a disappointment to me as it is to you. I definitely don't mind the work of having to identify a whole bunch of die varieties that came out of the rolls. That means you guys are getting value out of the rolls. And for me, it's not going to make any difference to me in the very end, one way or the other, because I'm not going to end up keeping any of the coins. So if they're good coins or not good coins, the end result is the same for me, no coins. So I prefer that you get the good ones. You just searched a 63D Fed roll, had 5 dice, 37 die number 1. Wow. You got yourself a monster roll there on your hands. We do have a 32D roll coming up here. I mean, a 32D. 63D. I don't know where my head was there. There's another one of those die clashes. 63D roll. Oh, we already did the 63D roll. Sorry. Did that yesterday. Boy, my head isn't there. I tell you what. No caffeine makes me kind of loopy and weird. Gotta get my coffee. DDR number 1, okay. You're an English teacher, Hector? I find myself cringing when I read a lot of the posts I see on Facebook, especially the memes, the ones that are just spelled wrong or they use the wrong word, especially with the 3 2s and other very commonly misspelled words. There's also a lot of them that are just commonly improperly used, like when somebody wants to say were, like they were beautiful, and then they spell it where, W-H-E-R-E. It just gets right up my tail side. Right up my tail side. Kinesiology? Is that memory? Kinesiology? I know the word kinesthetics, but I don't quite know exactly what it means. I can spell it, but I don't quite know what it means. Yeah, there versus there. Oh, and They apostrophe R-E. They are. Randy's listening. Good morning, Randy. I do not know exactly where they are. Hey, look at that. That's really cool. Really nice die crack running from the C to the A of America. I don't think I've ever seen that before. That's really kind of cool. What we're doing here now is we're taking a pile of manure and turning it into something that smells better. Except. My wife actually asks me which one of those to use. Orig, coin number 39. Let's see what comes out of coin number 39. I'm going to guess, if I was a betting man, I'd be putting my money on normal, because that's all we found out of this roll so far. We do have our nice little clashes, clash marks and whatnot. Those are kind of cool. Now I'm looking for that die crack between the C and the A of America. That's actually kind of cool. Randy. You're all up in my OCD, bruh. Spielt their words right. Advanced physical education towards sports medicine and physical performance. Basically, the study of human performance and movement. Okay. Yeah, I just did an advertisement for your job. Come be a kinesiologist, and Hector will teach you how to do it. If you want to ask me a question, or when I was in school as a kid, I went to inner city schools in Memphis, Tennessee, and I had a kid in the desk next to me. He asked me if he could buy a pencil. I just moved here, so I don't speak that language yet. Could you go a little slower, please? I said, can I buy a pencil? Could you maybe spell it? That might help. Pencil with lead. You write with it. Oh, you want a pencil? Oh, okay. I have a pencil here. There you go. I had no idea what a pencil was, though. Same kid. I came to know him pretty well in school because we hung out a lot together. His name was Sherrard. And one time Sherrard said something about the screet. I didn't know what he was talking about. The screet? What's a screet? You know, the screet where you drive. Oh, okay. Yeah. Back where I come from, we call that a street. But screet works. Now I know. What about the screet, bro? So I was walking down the street, mind my own business. Yeah, folks, want to get me off on the inner city southern talk, because I know how to do it. I was raised up in it. I lived in Memphis, Tennessee from the 3rd grade until I graduated high school. So I went to most of my schooling was done in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, the crick and creek thing is a country thing. That's a backwoods thing. It's going, you don't want to drive your tractor through the creek because it's a little deep. Of course, it depends on where you're from because, well, some people call a creek a brook. Mostly northern people. That's because of the brook trout. So I've got to be a brookie. Brookie is a person who fishes for brook trout. Business. That's right. So don't be going all up in my business. You mind your own business. Don't be all getting up in my business. I have to jack slap you. I see you guys are dragging the southern back out of me. Now there was a short clip video of me in 1988. And if you don't think a person's vernacular and language and pronunciation can change over a given period of time, I have something that'll prove that wrong, because I have a clip from the CBS Evening News. August 28th, 1988. We're talking about the aftermath of the Ramstein Air Show crash, which I was there. And Mark Phillips did an interview of me, and the way I spoke during that showed that I had just moved out of Memphis and had been there for years. Had been there for a long time. And now you guys are used to listening to me as I am now and as I speak now. But if you go back to that video and you watch that video, sounds like the same person, but he sure doesn't speak the same way. Lots of people crying, lots of people screaming. Just try and get out of the way. I sound like one of those, you know, when the tornado hits and they always go out to the trailer park to interview the people who never come outside. Yeah, that's what I sounded like. Boulevard. Who's this, your boss? I had a boss one time, sound like Eeyore. Yeah. And he's always talking like this. And she never get a straight word. Well, I don't know. Maybe we ought to just go over here and take care of this one now. Wait, you never called him for anything emergent that you needed a really quick answer on because he spoke too slowly. Hey, dude, speed up. Hell, wheat back attack. Earl versus oil. Yep. He's gonna go put some Earl in his truck. It's order. I ought to do something about that. Mr. Fletcher, coin number 47. We'll get 3 coins left after this one. Unfortunately, it looks like we're going to come out with a dud roll on this 1972D roll. Don't let that deter you from looking through 1972D in the future. 1972D can actually be a really good year to go through. The way I speak at this point in time, I do believe I'm pretty much just a rounded American accent. You couldn't really tell where I'm from one way or the other because I am from the Deep South, and I certainly don't speak like a Deep Southerner. It's actually not Deep South. Where we lived, it was called the Mid-South. That's your news from the best station in the Mid-South. With WWMC TV Memphis. TV5. ¿Qué pasó? La misma costa. And you see, I don't really speak a lot of Spanish. I can speak Greek, though, and the accent is similar. I sound like I'm from the Midwest. Oh. I guess I am. I went in the military. I spent 4 years in Germany, and then I came back to the U.S. and spent 6 years stationed in Oklahoma, with another 2 years after I got out spent in Oklahoma, and then I moved back to Missouri, and I lived in southern Missouri for a number of years, about 10, 12 years. And then I got called to take a job in Florida, so I did. I went to Florida, and I spent, in and out, about 12 years there. And then I moved here to North Carolina, and now I live in North Carolina. I don't speak much like any of the other people around here. This is Joe McBride's coin number 50, the last coin in the roll. Just a little bit of spottiness due to it being pressed up against a cardboard piece for Well, what's it been now? 48 years? That's if my calculation is right. You're from Iowa? Now she sounds like they do. Yeah, that happens. It really does. But I live in North Carolina now, and I don't plan on changing my vernacular again. I'm a little old for that. So I'll probably sound like a Midwesterner through my days being here in North Carolina. Kalimera Tikanes? Kalaime. Que sí? I do understand Greek. Thank you, Wanda. All right, folks. Well, the only fortunate part of this is that I probably don't have anything to attribute, so you'll get these coins pretty quickly. That's the only fortunate part of it. Everything else is unfortunate in that we ended up with 50 coins and no die varieties. Kalimerasas. That's all these people who don't speak Greek. They say, well, it's Greek to me. You know what the Greeks say? The Greeks say Mufena de Kinesica. That means it sounds Chinese. Or actually, it's I find it Chinese. Hello, Majestic. All right, folks, it's just about noon. We're going to be coming back on at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock this afternoon, we're going to be doing a 1945D roll. It's a 1945D tubed roll. Hope we find some goodies in there. There is a decent chance of it. So I'll see you guys around at that time. Come back in a couple hours, Majestic. We'll chit-chat some more. So I'll see you guys in 2 hours. Talk to you later.